On this edition of Prime Sports College Hoops, we'll take a look at the start of conference tournament play with a preview of 16, including the Big Ten and the WCC. We'll let you know which teams are the teams to beat, potential sleepers, and NCAA tournament contenders. As Prime Sports College Hoops on the Prime Sports Radio Network starts now. All right, it's Wednesday, February 21st, 2018. I'm Greg DePalma. You're listening to the Prime Sports Radio Network, and conference tournament play gets underway next week, and we're going to be here to get you ready for conference tournament play. So we've got 16 conference tournaments that we are going to prep you for, and then we've got the rest when we come back on our next show, and that's actually a week from today. So we've got a lot of basketball to cover here in a short period of time. Let's welcome in our college hoops analyst, writer for, actually you could say now he's a writer for PrimeSportsNetwork.com, and analyst and sports producer, and he does it all. I'm glad he's got enough time for this because he's coming back tomorrow to talk baseball. Scott Zolatoro. How you doing, Scott?
I am good. We got a couple of days here where I was able to get off work a little early, to get.
Where are you off to as far as the tournaments and any of those basketball venues you're going to be going to soon?
Well, I will be doing college hockey for the big boy job and the conference tournament for the Hockey East, which is one of the biggest conferences with BC, Harvard, and BU, just to name a few. So
is Northeastern in that one?
Coming up. What
is Northeastern in that conference?
Northeastern as well.
Hey man, Adam Gaudette, Vancouver Canuck baby.
Yeah,
he's kicking ass. Kicked ass in the Bean Pot.
Yeah, Bean Pot it's fun, man. Bean Pot's fun.
Hey man,
college
hockey.
More people should know about the Bean Pot.
No, well,
Let's put it that way.
It is. I mean, Gaudette said it all when he said he'd rather have won the Bean Pot than I think. What was it? Did he say Olympic gold or something like that?
Olympic gold. It was. Yeah, he said that.
Yeah, so that shows you how important it is. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the conferences that are going to be starting all before March 6th. And so that's and the two big ones are the Big Ten and the WCC. So let's get right to it. Start with the Big Ten. Now the Big Ten doesn't get underway. That one when is that one underway? By the way, that's
that one gets underway the 28th.
28th.
At the Garden.
Okay.
It's a weird year for the Big Ten tournament because they wanted to have it in New York so badly, and they wanted to have it at the Garden so badly.
Okay.
And they tried to buy the Big East off, but the Big East was like, nah. We've had it at the Garden for 30 years now. We're keeping it there. If you want to do it, you could do it a week early. So that's what's happening. So whoever wins the Big Ten has an entire week and a half before the NCAA tournament starts.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be interesting when we go over the tournament, and of course we'll have the bracket show and all that kind of stuff, and we'll be doing a bunch of shows like we did last year during the tournament. But it's going to be interesting because of the fact that since teams from big conferences like the Big Ten don't normally have that much rest. It'll be an interesting example, I guess, of whether or not did it benefit the Big Ten when it's all said and done for them to be rested going in, or was it a disaster and most of them are knocked out before the Sweet 16?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to figure out. But, I mean, you have conferences like the West Coast Conference has generally been over a week and a half before also. So Gonzaga has had the rest.
Well, that's true.
When Butler was back on the horizon, they had the rest. So teams, when VCU was in the CAA, they had the rest too. So teams have gone there far with the rest. Some teams, I'm sure, have struggled with the rest. But I just named a few that have succeeded with the rest.
All right. So the Big Ten and Michigan State right now is the hottest team. And one of the teams now, I mean, they're playing their best basketball of the year. And they picked the right time to do it. And look, they've got all these other distractions going on around them too, and it hasn't hurt them. So they're the clear co-favorite with Purdue, right?
Purdue right now is starting to stymie a bit. Obviously, they had the loss at home to Ohio State by 1 point in an absolute nail, but that was one of the best games in the Big Ten season so far. And they had another great game where they lost at Michigan State. It's the loss to Wisconsin that really has people starting to see maybe this team isn't the team that everybody thought they were. Remember, they had this same thing happen to them earlier in the season where they lost to Tennessee and Western Kentucky in the Atlantis tournament. They lost 2 in a row. Everybody thought they were a huge bust at that point. Then they went and won 21 in a row, and then now they've lost 3 in a row before finally beating Penn State in a huge win last night. So now they have Illinois and Minnesota, 2 must-win games for them in the rest of the season because they have not locked up this number 2 spot yet.
And the number 2 spot is what do they have? Are there any buys? How many buys are there in the Big Ten tournament?
So the Big Ten gets 4 teams get a double bye, 4 teams get a single bye, and then the other teams play each other in the first round. So 5 days. If you're in the bottom, if you play on the first day, you got to win 5 straight games to win this thing. And
like Michigan.
Like Michigan did. Yep. Even after their planes get off that runway.
That's right. So it worked out for them last year, but that is not the route that you want to take. No question about that. So yeah, but yeah, you know, the thing
this way, this year with the week and a half, maybe it's okay if you have to play 5 straight days, the week and a half rest.
You know, the thing with Purdue though is, and I think maybe this is part of the problem, and it's been the problem with them as a tournament team, is when they're a favorite, when everybody's looking at them, that's when you kind of feel like they're not. I don't know. You know, it's not the same players. I get it, but it is the same coach. So I don't know. It's sometimes a program has that weight of expectation on them, and they're. I mean, we saw that they got upset a couple of years ago to Arkansas Little Rock in the tournament. They had a very close game last year in the first round with Vermont, right? I think it was Vermont, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So they just one of those tournament teams that you just can't trust, and so now that they lose late. So that's the thing. If I'm a Purdue fan, I'd rather go into the tournament with nobody paying attention to me.
Yeah, but at the same time, you've been a top 5 team throughout the entire season. So if they
you don't want to lose 3 straight. You don't want.
Well, they lost 3 straight again. 2 of them were to right now the number 1 and 2 teams in the conference. And you know what, Purdue is almost at this point almost a lock for that 3 seed because Ohio State just has Indiana left. If they win that game, Ohio State holds the tiebreaker over Purdue and would get the 2 seed. So Purdue needs to win both and Ohio State to lose to Indiana to even get the 2 seed. So right now they're looking at getting a 3, which again still gives you the double bye, which is huge. And then we'll all see what happens with that 4th one with Nebraska can pull this thing off.
Well, the 2 teams right now that are the most interesting. Actually, let's even throw Maryland in there because they have 19 wins. They're a game under 500 in the conference, so that means something obviously. But right now, the 2 top teams that I'm looking at is Nebraska and Penn State. I think Penn State's going to win tonight. It's their last home game. We know how important that is. Michigan came off their last home game. They were really up for the game, emotional rivalry. They're going to have a letdown, I think. I think Penn State knows how important this is. I think Penn State's a good, and to get 20 wins and to go 10-7 in the conference, I think Penn State I think a win tonight puts them in.
Yeah, I mean, just if you look at Penn State's last 4 games of the schedule this season, I mean, the fact they're in this situation is incredible. They had Ohio State. They won that game by 23 points at home. So they're a very good team at home.
Yeah.
Huge upset there. Then they lost to Purdue at Purdue by just 3 points.
Yep.
And now they have Michigan tonight at home. And they finish this thing up at Nebraska. So they're playing against the top teams in the conference to end the season. And it's really put up or shut up for them. They've done a really, really good job. Pat Chambers. I mean, good Lord. I think he's the coach of the year in my book in this conference. But this team is so balanced, so good. You never know who it's going to beat each night. And that's a scary thing for other teams to play. Right now, I would have them in. I would have 6 teams in from the conference, including Nebraska as well, with Maryland being the one that's the closest on the bubble.
Yeah, Nebraska really nobody expected Nebraska to play like this year.
Well,
The expectations were there, I think, last year, and they had a big
yeah. Well,
disappointment.
It was 2 years
2
ago.
years ago?
They were.
Okay.
Yes, it was 2 years ago. So Nebraska's got the luckiest draw in the conference. They had Michigan State once, Purdue once, Ohio State once, Michigan once, and Maryland once. They had all those teams once, who were the top 5 teams going into the tournament this year. They also had into the season this year. They also only had Northwestern once, who was a top team going into it this year. So that means they had Rutgers twice, Illinois twice, Iowa twice. So a favorable draw on their side. Minnesota twice.
All right. Well, I mean, hey, they took advantage of it, and that's the most important thing.
Care of business, and
that's
they're
right.
in.
Yeah.
In my opinion, they're in. And again,
I
they
think
have
so
one
too.
game left, and it's home against Penn State. They should be in.
Yeah, I agree. And so, but Maryland's your team. So what are they going to have to do to get in? They're going to have to win at least a couple of tournament games.
Well, they got to first of all they have to beat Michigan, and then they have Michigan's the last game of the season, so they got to beat Michigan. And then Maryland actually has an entire week off before that, so they got to beat Michigan, and then they got to win 2 games in the tournament, which will be somebody and then Michigan State, probably Northwestern, who they beat twice in the last 10 days.
Okay.
And then they got to beat Michigan State.
So they only have Michigan, and then that would put them at 500 in the conference, right? And then at that point,
with 20 wins.
With 20 wins, yeah.
With 20 wins.
Yeah. So and then depending on who they would play in the tournament, you win that first one, and then you got a shot. The 2 wins in the tournament, you're in. But you win that first one.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a shot.
You got a shot.
All right. And by the way, who's the guy that's out for them, right? Who's been out for them most of the season?
Justin Jackson.
And he's out, right?
He's done.
He's done, yeah.
And so is Ivan Bender, and they've had a couple other injuries.
Yeah, they've had some injuries that have definitely hurt them. All right, so let's now again. So the Big Ten, that's going to be, and again that is going to be at the Garden.
The Garden. Garden.
That's going to be at the Garden, and that's going to be on the 28th, and that is next Wednesday, right? That's when we do our next show. Okay.
Yep, next Wednesday to the Sunday.
Okay. Also, by the way, let's stick with what's going on next Wednesday. You got the Northeast and Ohio Valley tournaments that same day to get started. And with the Ohio Valley, Belmont's been the class of this conference for a while. Murray State was a top team too. They had a bad year last year, but they're back. Belmont did beat Murray State in their only matchup of the season. But these are the 2 classes of the conference, and they used to have the 2 divisions, but they only have 1 conference now, right?
Yeah, it's one strong conference. I'll even throw Austin Peay at a really good conference schedule too. But you nailed it. It's Murray State and Belmont. If those 2 teams don't meet in the conference final, it's a huge letdown for. I'm sure that's an ESPN tournament. It's a huge letdown for them. So I think it's going to be a really, really good conference. You got, like I said, there's 2 teams, and then Austin Peay, really good. But Belmont, to me, is the one. They're so strong. Like you said, they beat Murray State, even though it was a home game. And luckily for them, they only got them once at home, so it's a huge advantage. But you got some really, really good players. Ezekiezi is just a monster. He's so good. He's very, very athletic. Can knock down the 3. He's shooting at 51%. And then, of course, you got the player of the conference, Dylan Windler, Windler is 17 and almost double a game.
Yeah, and the other star player in the conference is with Murray State. That's Jonathan Stark. And Jacksonville State probably is saying, wait a second, don't forget about us. We surprised everybody. We won the tournament championship last year. They're having an okay season. Ray Harper's done a great job there. I mean, 1 year, and he takes the team to the to winning the championship. So they might be a sleeper in the Ohio Valley. They have a few guys back from last year's team.
So they actually played an interesting non-conference schedule. They played against a couple power conference teams. They only lost to Oregon State by 1 and at Mississippi State by 3. Now, granted, those aren't the class of their conferences, but that still shows that they were willing to go to the upper conferences, and they also beat Richmond, an A-10 team, by 33. So
okay.
I wouldn't count them out, but I think if neither Belmont or Murray State wins this conference, I would be just beyond shocked.
All right, let's go to the Northeast now, and you've got last year's champ was Mount St. Mary's, and Mount St. Mary's Junior Robinson is one of the best players in the conference.
Oh, he's outstanding.
And they had 4 returning starters from their championship team, so they're obviously one of the teams to beat. And Wagner's at the top of the standings right now, right?
Yeah. So this is, in my opinion, this is one of the toughest conferences to call because you've got 4 really good teams. This has basically been the conference where everybody has just really beat up on each other between Wagner, San Francis, PA, Mount St. Mary's, and St. Francis, Brooklyn. So you're looking at a possible St. Francis conference final, which would be a pretty interesting thing. I don't know if we've ever seen such a thing. But again, this is another team, Wagner, that wasn't afraid to go up and play against the big boys. They played against Missouri when they still had Porter. They got their butt kicked in that one, though. But they played Seton Hall pretty tough for the majority of the game, played Dayton tough on the road for the majority of the game, and then opened up their conference and blew out, like you said, the conference champion from a year ago, Mount St. Mary's. So I like Wagner a lot. Really, really solid team. JoJo Cooper, he's my guy on this team. I mean, the guy is just outstanding, a great shooter. He can get close to a triple-double every game between points, rebounds, and assists. And, how fun of a name is JoJo, by the way. And if you look at St. Francis, the team that would technically be the 2 seed right now, if the day ended right now, they got 4 excellent scorers, and they got Keith Braxton, who is probably one of the toughest big guys in the conference, who could also knock down some threes.
All right, and another guy that's really helped Wagner out this year is their leading scorer, Blake Francis. He took off this year. One of the main reasons why, along with Cooper, that they're in the position they're in. This was a team that was expected to be at the bottom of the conference this year. They won 16 games, but they only returned 2 starters. But Francis wasn't one of them, and this is what happens sometimes. These players take off, and so that's the Northeast. So again, the Northeast.
Wagner was picked 3rd in the conference to start the season.
Oh, in the Northeastern Conference,
in the preseason
poll with them. Okay,
that was the coaches.
The coaches. Okay.
They didn't get any
love with the writers.
They didn't get any love from the writers, and they didn't get any first place votes from the coaches either. I'll tell you, the team that has been the biggest disappointment in this conference has been Fairleigh Dickinson, who was picked very high in the conference, but they have really struggled mightily.
Well, and they only won 11 games last year, so maybe they were a little bit overrated.
They brought back a lot of players. Yeah, they brought back a lot of players.
Okay, so that's going to be next Wednesday. Again, the Big Ten, Northeast, and Ohio Valley. Now let's move on and take a look at the WCC. That's the next big one. And, of course, that's Gonzaga and St. Mary's. So any reason to believe that we're not going to see Gonzaga and St. Mary's in the championship game?
No. I mean, I can't believe that we're still having this conversation where it's just these 2 schools in this conference. Yeah. Or that these 2 schools are in this conference. Mm-hmm. Let's put it that way. The fact that somebody, the Pac-12 or somebody, just open up and be like, all right, I know they play in smaller gyms. They might be slightly smaller revenue schools, but these teams are going to beat your teams. They're going to beat the Oregon States. They're going to beat, the Washington State. Let's put these teams in the Pac-12 and let's get this over with already. Let's see what they can do. How many years in a row do we have to talk about these 2 teams just beating the living daylights out of everybody else? Now, I'll tell you one thing. Gonzaga didn't beat the living daylights out of teams quite like St. Mary's did. And that is something, and obviously they split the series. In fact, they each won the away game in the series. So that was the most interesting thing we've seen. And they were both, pretty well played games, except for Gonzaga really had a better edge on that game at St. Mary's. But, I mean, we're talking about these 2 teams. There's nowhere else. There's nobody else.
Now, BYU they've got 21 wins, but they haven't really beaten anybody, have they?
No, and it's not going to happen. Actually, the team that has surprisingly, got the big win was San Francisco, was the one that won that game against St. Mary's last week.
The other team that I think could, on a neutral court, make things a little interesting would be Damon Stoudemire's Pacific Tigers. I wouldn't. I mean, they've played the Gonzagas and the St. Mary's tough on their home court.
They played it tough.
Yeah, they played them tough, and Stoudemire is doing a really good job just bringing in all sorts of players, transfers, trying to make sure he cleanse the program the right way. So that's a team that maybe next couple of years might be able to do something in that conference.
It's keep an eye out for. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out on them. All right. So anyway,
very young team actually, only one senior. So definitely keep an eye out for them.
All right. So chances are though we're going to get Gonzaga and St. Mary's once again. Who are you going to pick? Who are you going to pick? Who's winning?
St. Mary's. Jock Landale overall.
Okay. All right. And by the way, who are you picking in the Big Ten?
At this exact moment, I'm picking the comeback story for Purdue. I think that Purdue picks it up.
Okay. Let's go on to the Missouri Valley now. And boy, the Missouri Valley, they've seen better days. Everybody is pretty much gone. And we expected maybe, Valpo moved in and there's Northern Iowa, so maybe those two programs will be the cream of the crop. Hasn't happened that way. It's Loyola. Even though a lot was expected from Loyola, he had an 18-win season. Milton Doyle, who's a net he's with their Long Island team, actually. I saw him in the preseason, so he's somebody that I definitely think may have an NBA future. But he's gone, and yet Loyola's actually having even a better season than last season. But then again, the conference isn't as strong.
I actually really like Southern Illinois. I've caught them play a few times. If anybody remembers that a team that had the win on like that ridiculous buzzer beater about a month or so ago. From like 50 or 60 feet or something like that. So I like Southern Illinois a lot. They've won, I believe, 8 of the last 9 games. They actually play somewhat better on the road sometimes than they do at home. They had a tough loss on the road at Loyola, Illinois. So, but they're a very good team, and I think that they have Loyola, Illinois tonight, actually. So big game there. I'm pretty sure the Ramblers have already locked up the number 1 seed in the tournament in Arch Madness. But like you said, I mean, what a huge disappointment have Valpo and Northern Iowa been the 2 worst teams in the tournament. It's almost a bigger story than Southern Illinois and Loyola Chicago being that good. And
maybe the reason why Fairleigh Dickinson hasn't been and I know this was I don't know if Marquise Towns was supposed to play there last year or not, but Towns was actually transferred over from FDU to Loyola, and he's been a big part of what's going on with the Ramblers this year. So
yeah, I mean, you nailed it on the head. He's been, they're probably one of their best 2-3 players.
Yeah.
And he's, first of all, I mean, the thing about Loyola, Illinois, is they are so good from 3. They got 4 guys shooting 400 or better. They got 5 guys shooting 36% or better. So that's just, it's tough to guard. They're a small team, and they know that, and they know their strength. It's very rare when you finally see a team play to their strengths like they do.
All right, let's go to the Southern. The Southern is another conference tournament that's going to start on March 1st with the WCC and the Missouri Valley and the Southern. Now I do like East Tennessee State as a potential bracket buster team. This is
a fool not to.
Yeah, last year they went to the tournament. They had some key guys back, not starters. They did lose 4 starters, but they had a lot of other guys that were there last year, and they added some other nice players too, a couple of transfers to the program. So East Tennessee State, DeSanta Bradford and Jalen McLeod, really a couple of good guards there, but they're a pretty balanced team.
Very balanced, and don't forget about my favorite player is the senior who had some injury problems early in his career, Devontavious Payne. It has just been, he's been a huge spark for them. This is a team that I got to see in person last year at the tournament against Florida, and they gave them everything they had for about 32, 33 minutes, and we're going back and forth in that game. Like you said, the fact that they have lost 4 starters and are coming back this year is just, it's such a huge credit to Coach Steve Forbes and how good he has been there. again, a former assistant at who? Wichita State.
Greensboro might be the team that could give them the most problems. They were tied for the regular season title last year. In the regular season, they won 25 games last year. They're another. I mean, they did lose a couple of double-figure scores, so nobody knew exactly whether or not they'd be able to return. But then again, so did East Tennessee State, as we said. But Greensboro looks like they might be a team that could cause East Tennessee State problems. But East Tennessee State, though, is clearly the team to beat.
Well, Greensboro did beat East Tennessee State by 16 or 18 or whatever it was at the home game there. The thing with Greensboro is they just sometimes come out and play very inconsistent. They lost to Chattanooga, who's one of the bottom teams in the conference. They lost to Mercer, who's a mid-level in the conference team. So the Chattanooga loss to me is the one that really stands out. Now they play Chattanooga again on Friday night, and then they have Samford to end up their conference regular season. So they have a chance if they win both those games, because East Tennessee State still has Wofford and Furman, who are certainly higher up. Watford and Furman actually 3 and 4. So UNC Greensboro could end up getting that 1 seed, but it should be the two of them in the finals.
Okay, the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference is the other of the 4 tournaments starting on March 1st. And Rider right now is at the top of the standings, even though they lost 4 starters from last year's team. They have been able to still end up as the team to beat right now as far as the standings are concerned. They've got 5 players averaging pretty much in double figures, so that's a lot of firepower. You've got Canisius. Iona, of course, though, is the 2-time champs.
Iona is a team you really can never count out. They still have so much experience from those 2-time champs teams too. Of course, you got 4 players in double figures. You got 6 players averaging 9 points for Iona. Their schedule has just been. I mean, they had a tough schedule throughout the early part of the season. They challenged themselves. They opened up with Syracuse. They had a St. John's game. They played Rhode Island very close at Rhode Island. Only lost by 6. That was during that crazy win streak for Rhode Island. And here's the thing, though. If they didn't just go lose those 2 games in a row, one in overtime at Siena and then the home game to Niagara, you're looking at a possible, and Niagara's right ahead of them, you're looking at a possible 3-way, 4-way tie here with Rider also at the top. But Rider, I'm not sure how much I can trust them. I think they're a very good team. They lost by 30 almost to Iona earlier in the season, and they lost by 1 to Canisius. So I like Canisius a lot. Actually, I think that they've played some really good ball. I've only seen them play about 2 or 3 times in person on the television, and from what I saw, they're a really good balanced team. Obviously led by Jermaine Crumpton, who's just a great player. He's a bruiser type who likes to battle you down and box you inside.
All right, Atlantic Sun is going to be the conference that kicks it all off on Monday. So that's the lone conference tournament that begins the conference tournament season on Monday. And this is, of course, where Florida Gulf Coast resides. So no doubt Florida Gulf Coast is one of the favorites. But the other favorite is Lipscomb. And Lipscomb and Florida Gulf Coast split this year. But Gulf Coast has dropped 2 straight games, so keep that in mind. But Garrison Matthews is averaging 21 points a game. Marbury, 16 points a game for Lipscomb. So we're probably going to get a Lipscomb Gulf Coast championship game, you would think.
And you would hope so, too. These have probably been the 2 best teams throughout the tournament. I mean, Dunk City won. I think they won, 14 or 12 straight games before those last 2 losses. So they've been really good. Brandon Goodwin is an outstanding talent. A guy can just fly, but he also dishes the ball as well as he scores. Not a great shooter, but who is a great shooter is Christian Terrell, who's just been outstanding from all over the floor, and he can also grab rebounds, second highest rebounder, third highest rebounder on the team. So I like Florida Gulf Coast to win this one, but Lipscomb does give them a bit of a scare. Obviously, Garrison Matthews is the best player in the conference overall. He's been just terrific, and then Rob Marbury, as like you mentioned, is just a great 2 guy there. But besides those 2, the scoring becomes a little inconsistent and a little worrisome for Lipscomb. So I'm sticking with Dunk City to go ahead for 3 out of 4.
Well, Casey Alexander is starting to do something special there, because they had a record 20 wins last year, and he's in his 5th year. So they had some issues early on in his first few years, but now they're starting to turn things around there. So we'll keep an eye on this program and see if maybe this is going to be a nice rivalry for a few years to come with the Florida Gulf Coast Joe Dooley led team, and he's done a really good job too. I mean, when Einfeld went to USC, you had to really wonder what would happen to the program.
Yeah, I mean it's truly amazing what he has done there. I mean, the fans of Florida Gulf Coast, again, who knows how long the fans were, as crazy and rabid as they are now. But when Enfield left, it must have been just such a tough one to take. But now 2 straight tournaments, trying to make it a third, and they again also gave Florida State everything they had in the tournament last year.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the Tuesday conferences. That conference tournaments that'll get underway. Patriot and Big South. We'll start with the Patriot, and Bucknell is definitely the team to beat in the Patriot. What a crazy game last week against Colgate. I was on the verge of, because I taped so many games, I was on the verge of deleting the tape, because there was, I forget what it was like maybe 30 seconds left. I think they were down by 5 or 6. And I was just about to press the delete button. You get that second chance to press the delete button on your DVR, and then it goes for good. And just as I was about to do it, the player for Bucknell, he got fouled, and the ball went in. And if the ball did not go in, I was deleting that. The ball went in. I figured, okay, an extra couple of points, maybe. And they had that incredible comeback, and I'm glad I stuck with it. And Colgate actually gave him a tremendous game at Bucknell. But I think that proves just how good Bucknell was and is, because they really did not shoot the ball at all in that game, and they found a way to win. They beat Navy, maybe their toughest competitor in the Patriot, by 20 the last time that these two teams played. And these two teams are playing, I believe, tonight at Bucknell. Is that correct?
They are playing, tonight at Bucknell. I thought the other one was Navy, but it was definitely the home game for Bucknell. So the 2 losses for Bucknell were Lehigh and BU, one at home, one away. Here's the thing about Bucknell, and had they have only lost one of those games, I would have put them on the Vermont pedestal in terms of mid-major, but it shows that they're a little inconsistent. They have a very, very good scoring team. They also just happen to allow a lot of points too. So not very good in the scoring defense department. In fact, they only are beating teams by a margin of exactly 6 points, which for a team that's gone 14-2 in conference plays is pretty surprising, considering that they had a tough schedule. They at Maryland almost beat Maryland. That was a 2-point game. They played UNC really tough. Those were back-to-back games. They lost to Arkansas. They had 3 straight games at Arkansas, at UNC, and at Maryland to start their season. They beat Vermont. There's that. They beat Vermont earlier. So I think Bucknell is really good. I think Bucknell is going to win this tournament probably pretty handily. And I think Bucknell is a team that actually beat somebody in this year's NCAA tournament.
Yes. Well, last year they went to the tournament and nearly upset West Virginia.
Right.
And all 5 starters returned from that team. So that's how good they can be.
And I think they have the best mid-major player in the country, in Zach Thomas, who can score from all over the place. Also, just so happens to be one of the leading rebounders in the conference, and just an outstanding player, an outstanding talent. Good for my buddy John Griffin, who's a former coach at St. Joe's. His son is on the coaching staff at Bucknell.
And they got good size too, which is why they can match up with the big programs. Not only Thomas. I
mean, their best player is their big guy.
Yeah.
And he can just score from anywhere. So. Yeah,
they got.
And then you got Nana Folan too. Another big guy.
Another big
guy.
Their
2 best players are big.
Yep.
How many teams do you see their 2 best players be big? Very rare.
And that's why if they can, if they get hot and they can shoot the ball in the tournament, they can definitely cause problems. And depending on who they match up with, this is an early prediction here that we might be circling Bucknell as a bracket buster come tournament time. Navy, meanwhile,
last year, actually.
To win that game against West Virginia?
I did.
Okay. Maybe this time. You do it twice, you get 50-50, and you're in. Navy, meanwhile, is a team that really did surprise. The former Penn State coach has been there for a while, but finally he's having some success. Last year they had a very nice season, and they're even better this season. But like we said, they did lose to 20 to Bucknell when they matched up with Bucknell first time. We'll see what they do tonight at Bucknell.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big game for them. Navy's a very balanced team, as every Navy team always is. There's one thing about these armed forces teams, that they just play such great team basketball. It's incredible to watch. I've been able to see him Navy twice in person, and though Sean Anderson leads the stat sheets, I saw a game where Tom Lacey was just outstanding. I mean, George Kiernan, he's a guy who's another really good scoring player for them. And I think that they could give Bucknell a fight, but Navy's a team that could win like a CIT for sure.
All right. The Big South is the other conference that's going to be on Tuesday, getting started on Tuesday, and we've got another great game tonight. We've got possibly the two top teams in the conference playing tonight. UNC Asheville, which is 15 minutes from where I live. I should go to the game. They're at home against Winthrop, the defending Big South champs.
Oh, yeah, and it's on ESPNU, so I've got it circled. I'll have it on. I have, in my new house, we have 2 TVs in the downstairs with cable, so that'll be on TV 2. TV 1 will probably have Clemson, Virginia Tech on, because that's a huge one in the ACC, which obviously we're not talking about tonight. But this game will be on my television. I'm excited to see these two teams play. I've only watched each one of them once. I know Ahmad Thomas is just outstanding. I mean, you talk about a guy who is so tough to guard inside. He can score to his left. He can score to his right. He's so good for UNC Asheville. And then Winthrop, the team who just seems like they've always been the team that's gotten out of this conference. Doesn't it always feel like it's Winthrop? They're just so well coached with 4 really good players. And Xavier Cook's the best player in that conference for sure. And he does it all trying to avoid turning the ball over, but he's an outstanding player and a really good two-way guard.
And they almost lost, speaking of coaching, Kelsey to UMass.
That's right.
So, but they got him back, and we'll find out whether or not it pays off for Winthrop UNC Asheville. We might see them in the championship game in the Big South.
Another one you hope so. And again, Winthrop also played Butler very well in the tournament last year as well.
All right, now the Horizon is next on our schedule, and the Horizon will be by itself to start off on March the 2nd. And this is going to be a little bit tough. Wright State has been a little bit surprising because I really felt Northern Kentucky, even though I think there were people who thought of Oakland as well, but even though, I mean, Oakland had 4 returning starters from a 25-win team, so they've been very disappointing. But Northern Kentucky, I figured, was going to cruise to not cruise, but I thought that they were going to be the clear team to beat here because they had 4 starters returning from the tournament team last year. But Wright State has surprised an awful lot of people, even though they were a 20-win team, but they only had a couple of starters that got back from last year's team.
So Wright State has done a really good job against the top teams in this conference. They beat UIC, and they beat Oakland. I think that Wright State should be the team that comes out of this thing. I wouldn't be surprised if Northern Kentucky is that. I know a while ago we were talking about North Kentucky when we had our mid-season show.
You know what it was? Kentucky. It was because last year I picked them to win that first game when they played. Who did they play? Was it Louisville in the tournament last year?
Who did they play?
Kentucky. Okay, Kentucky, and that was a good game. That actually they played them pretty well. For a while.
They did.
It wasn't an overmatched game, but maybe that's why you remember that.
Oh, yeah, I think they lost by single digits, if I remember correctly. I think Wright State, though, is a team this year. Another one of those teams that has 7 players that can that can score on any given night. They got 7 guys averaging, 7.5 or better. Grant Benzinger is a really good player, but Loudon Love, he's the guy. I mean, almost double every night. A absolute bruiser inside. He's only 6'9", and he's only a freshman. but he has, in my opinion, been the best player, one of the best players in this conference. Obviously, you got to also take a look at Northern Kentucky, and their star Drew McDonald has just been also equally as good as a bruiser. And McDonald, just a 6'7" junior. So the two of the best rebounders are 6'9" and 6'7" in this conference. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if you see UIC sneak into the championship. UIC plays both Northern Kentucky on Friday and then on Sunday, Wright State. So there you go.
Any particular reason why Oakland hasn't lived up to,
Inconsistency is really what it is for me. Sometimes they go out there and they could put up, 90, close to 100 points, and then other nights, it's only 50 or sometimes low 60s. They're a really good team. It's just they haven't put it all together. Also, you're looking at, James Beck was supposed to be a key contributor. He missed basically half the season. They've had, Jalen Hayes missed 4 or 5 games here and there, and so did Kendrick Nunn, who, really is their star player, the guy who transferred from Illinois. He's a graduate transfer. So you'd think that he would have been, the guy, and he has been the guy, 25.5 points. Don't get me wrong. He's been the guy, but he also missed 4 games.
Well, they're probably right now, if you're just looking at the standings, then they're the sleeper, even though there's no way they should be classified as a sleeper when the tournament begins. But
no, I mean, the top 4 teams in this tournament can win this tournament. And there's end of story.
Okay.
I mean, Kendrick Nunn can win games all by himself.
Sure.
He was really good at Illinois.
Yeah.
He was very good at Illinois.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the Colonial, the Summit, and the American East. This is going to be on March the 3rd. We're going to start with the Colonial, and Charleston right now has to be the team to beat. Charleston is having a tremendous season. They had 5 starters back from a 25-win team. So it's Charleston, right? Is there any other reason to believe that it won't be Charleston?
No, there's no other belief. There's no. I mean, if it's not them, I'd be shocked. This conference is just taking a huge nosedive.
Yeah, very disappointing.
There's a time where Towson and Delaware were just so good for a couple of years, and since then it hasn't been great. Northeastern, has an outside shot. Northeastern made a tournament a couple of years ago. They were the 3 seed going into it, but really just one star player there. So if you shut down Pachulia, Northeastern's beatable. So I like Charleston. I think they get it done, and good for them too. I mean, they're a team that is the newest team in this conference, and they've been really sprouting up. Remember, they actually had Canyon Barry before he went to Florida.
Yeah, 3 players, Chile, Brantley, and Riller, averaging over 17 points a game for Charleston.
Yeah.
So
and you never know which. And they can all shoot from 3 too. So you really, one of them will drive and kick, and then this team really works the perimeter well. And you never know which one of those 3 guys is going to be the hot guy of the night, and you can't double team any of them.
All right. Speaking of firepower, Mike Daum and South Dakota State, they were the preseason favorites, but the other South Dakota team has something to say about it. The Coyotes actually beat the Jackrabbits by 19 points, and they're going to be playing tonight at South Dakota State. So
tomorrow.
A rematch. Tomorrow. Oh, it's tomorrow? A rematch.
Tomorrow.
There you go. But Daum's the player of the conference, and he's the guy that you want to see in the tournament.
You're talking about an NBA player, in my opinion, or at least you get a fair shot in the G League or in Europe. But I think South Dakota State's going to get this redemption win tomorrow at home. The Jackrabbits are, just such a great team. Mike Daum, one of the more dominant players in the country, and people forget about, David Jenkins just because they have Mike Daum. But David Jenkins is an outstanding scorer himself, can score in a variety of ways. South Dakota State and they're another tournament team that could beat somebody.
Yeah, and they played Gonzaga last year in the tournament. Didn't go too well. But if they get back with experience,
that was the best team we'd seen in a long time.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, absolutely. But they get back to the tournament, hopefully for them, and they get Daum and with the returning starters and experience, maybe they could be dangerous. And we'll take a look and see who they play this time around. All right, and then finally, the America East is the other conference that'll start on March the 3rd, and this is the one with Vermont. And even though
all you have to say is it's the one with Vermont.
Surprising they did lose. That was surprising, but,
About time. I saw them play in person against UMBC, who is the second best team in the conference. And that was the grand opening of UMBC's new arena, beautiful new arena. And that was a game at UMBC, and they almost won by 30, Vermont did. Just forget about it. It's Vermont's conference. Unbelievable what they could do without Anthony Lamb for the majority of the season, who was probably their best player going into the season. It's theirs. Move on.
All right, March 5th, that's the last day before our next show, which is next Tuesday. That's next Tuesday, right? Or it's 2 Tuesdays from now. It's in 2 weeks. That's when we do our next show. That's the cutoff line for the conferences that are going to be beginning on March 6th. That's what I was trying to say. But March 5th. So this is the MAC and the MEAC. So these are the last two. And with the MAC, I know you've got Toledo. I know you've got Ball State. But I've been high on Buffalo all year. To me, they're the class of the conference.
Well, again, this is a team that used to be a Hurley team, and still has some Hurley players, swimming around in there somewhere. So a very good team. Again, another very balanced team with 4 very prolific scorers, 4 guys averaging 15 or better. I think that they're the class. And this is one of those, again, another one of those weird college basketball conferences where you have 2 divisions. I don't like this division stuff in basketball because they all play each other anyway. Why make 2 divisions? I think they're the only one left that does it, if we're being honest. But I'm a big Buffalo believer, though Toledo is really, really good. And here's the thing about this conference tournament is it's in Cleveland once you make it past. So you get those rabid Ohio fans. You never know.
Okay. So Ohio is the home team in the conference tournament.
Well, no, it's in Cleveland, so nobody's the home team, but anybody who.
Oh, they got a lot of teams from Ohio in that conference, don't they? Yeah.
Pretty much half the damn conference.
Kent State's the defending champs, so Buffalo.
Not happening for them.
Yeah, Buffalo though they're the team to watch, and that team definitely would have a chance to be a bracket buster team in the tournament. Yeah. And then finally the MEAC. This is just a wide open conference. Is there any team in this conference that you think is a clear favorite?
I don't think anybody's a clear favorite. The team that I like the most is Hampton, and that's because they got the one and only Jermaine Morrow, is just unbelievable. Another guy who can get damn near close to a triple double on any given night. He's just an outstanding player. And then they have a really good backcourt, a really good front court as well. With Hextall. He's, a big bruiser inside. I like Hampton, but another team in this conference, if I had to choose one, that would be another one is Bethune-Cookman. I've only seen all of these teams play once or twice, but Bethune-Cookman right now riding a nice little 4-game win streak. They got, Brandon Tabb is another really good scorer, a good 3-point shooter, and then Chantrez Davis, another really good 3-point shooter who can also grab 8 rebounds a game. They're one of the best. I think they are the best rebounding team in the country or conference.
All right.
How about this? They're actually the 3rd best rebounding team in the country is Bethune-Cookman.
Okay. All right. Next show, which by the way is going to be next Wednesday, as we mentioned, that every other conference tournament we will be previewing on our next show next Wednesday. So. And again, that begins with the March 6th tournaments, including the ACC. The ACC gets underway on March the 6th, so we'll have the ACC. As far as the big conferences, the SEC, the Pac-12, the Big 12, the Big East, the A-10, the AAC.
The American, baby, come on.
Yes, the AAC. American. Who by the way, my Final Four that I posted last week in my report, I have Cincinnati in my Final Four, and I also have I'm going with 3 Eastern teams: Cincinnati, Xavier, and Villanova, along with Michigan State. So and I've been taking Villanova pretty much all season, and I'm not moving away from them at all. So Villanova is my pick to win it all.
You'd be a full two.
Who do you like? Who's your Final Four right now?
My Final Four right now. I like the Natty pick. They just lost 2 in a row though since you made that pick. I'm
Well,
sure.
that's also why I think what I want to see them do though is, and then look, I will change my mind if they don't, because they got to go to Wichita. So go to Wichita, beat Wichita, and after you get punched, get back up and prove that you can, you can swift some punishment on the opposition.
So,
that's what I want to see.
So, as of right now, I like. Sadly enough, I like Duke to be in my Final Four.
Really?
I like a healthy Duke. I do.
Dude, they're better without
Duke.
Bagley. I mean, see, they can't lose with him out not on the court. How weird is that?
That's true. That's true. I like, people are going to be real high on Texas Tech. I don't think they had the experience to be a Final Four team. I like Duke. I like Michigan State. I like, I really like Arizona when they're all healthy and playing strong. And, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the year I finally pick, maybe Gonzaga.
Gonzaga? Really? To go back?
A balanced team? Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And who's your champion right now?
Oh, Arizona's my champion.
Really? Arizona. Okay. I think they're about 18-1 right now to win the championship.
Yeah, well, they
That's
have
not bad.
as good of a starting five as anybody in the country. And I guess they have the best player in the country in DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit worried about the fact that the Pac-12 is down this year. The competition, that kind of thing, that worries me a little bit, just a little bit. But
just don't tell
I see
them
what
Bill
you're
Walton,
saying.
Conference champions.
Don't they also have some, infraction stuff going on too behind closed doors? Some sort of potential distractions.
It's possible. We'll see.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. All right, Scott, great job. You'll put your baseball hat on tomorrow at noon when we preview the American League East and the National League East.
I'll be wearing my Cubs hat tomorrow.
See, isn't that something? I don't need you for months, and then when I need you, when you're two sports that you come on this network for it, and it happens like in 24 hours, college basketball and baseball. So
best time of the year.
Yes, it is. Appreciate it, Scott. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's Scott Zolatoro. And by the way, we are going to be talking NBA with Jamal Murphy. We're trying to line him up for Friday to get you updated on everything that's going on in the NBA before the playoffs get started in a couple of months. The trade deadline's gone. The NBA All-Star game is gone. So we'll let you know what's going on there with Jamal Murphy in a few days. And Jamal will join us for our bracket preview special that's going to come up. And we'll, of course, do that on Monday after the brackets are announced. So be back with us, though, next Wednesday when we preview the rest of the tournament action and conference play in college basketball. For Scott Zolatoro and Greg DePalma, follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN, and we'll see you next time. Take its toll if you could. I think